My name is Woodrow Wilson Clark II. I have 3 master's degrees and a PhD, and I call myself a qualitative economist. And Woodrow Wilson is the president's name, which I am named after.
Can you tell me about, can you just say for the camera, you said you used to work for the state.
Oh, a little background?
Who you worked for, what the position was, and if it's okay that we identify you as former, and then whatever.
Absolutely, yeah. I was Governor Davis's Renewable Energy Advisor, and also for emerging technologies and finance during the time when he was governor of the state of California in 1999 through 2003. And like roughly 4,000 people in his administration, I was, as I put it, recalled, and we had a new governor who took over. But my issue was to deal with the deregulation and how that caused a problem in the state.
Okay. So my question for you is, can you talk about the different challenges different communities face? How, you know, there's a communities in Culver City as opposed to communities up in the North Bay area.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's in Kern County.
Do you want me to give examples?
You can talk about examples. You can just kind of what are some general top line differences that communities face, and then if you need a couple examples, that's fine too.
I guess the thing to do when I talk about communities, because I've written books about communities and given lectures all over the world, is that the fact of the matter is the world is round. It's not flat like some economists think. In other words, we have everything impacts other people in other regions of the world, and including the United States. So I used to live in Northern California, in the San Francisco Bay Area, for about 25 plus years. And in that area, I got to know pretty much how they look at and deal with energy issues. Now I've been here in Southern California about 10 years, and I began to learn about issues here. Bottom line is in California is we are not a coal-producing state, depending on that for energy. We do get energy coming from coal plants in what they call the Four Corners, which is where the tribal nations are in Colorado, Utah area. However, what we've been doing is increasing our amount of use of natural gas in the state of California. So one of the questions is, where can we get more, if you will, energy within the state, become more or less dependent on other sources from around the world? So the use and the issue here of talking about fracking is very relevant. However, there are other things that when I was in government we did, which was we started incredibly large wind turbine farms. We also in solar energy. And now this has all been moving towards solar energy on homes, not just in places far away. And the purpose of doing that is so that the state doesn't have to buy resources outside, import it, process it, and then distribute it internally.
So what are some of as somebody who's been in the state government, what are some of the tools that you would have liked, or you think state officials need to tackle an issue such as hydraulic fracturing and simulation?
Well, I think there's a lot of tools that state officials and policymakers need. As was mentioned even so far in the meeting, what I found in state government is a lot of people who are trained in law become politicians, get elected to office, and they also hire their friends from law schools. So we had a lot of people with a legal background, which is okay on one level, but you've got to get the facts. And the issue is trying to become very scientific in it. And my view of it is that when you're in economics, that's not a science, so you've got to be sure it's scientific and it's done scientifically, which is a whole thing I've done in one of my books. But the fact of the matter is what you've got to do is get the evidence. And we came across this in a very important issue. We were having companies giving us numbers 1 + 1 = 7. And then when we started investigating that, there's something wrong there. And we helped prosecute people, some of whom wound up in jail because they were giving us false information, certified by accounting firms, by the way, all of which was fake.
And what do you think, right now California is kind of at this cusp, right? In the sense that there's some legislation there, there's some movement, there's obviously fracking in the state, but as the women from the California Air Water Resources Board said, you know, they're going to come out with some draft regulations in the next couple of weeks. What do you think are some ways that they can tackle this based on what you've heard in there, based on your own experiences?
Well,
what are your personal views on this?
Well, let's take what I was just giving the example of a decade ago, where we had companies giving us false information. You may have read just recently in the press where we have a couple of large banks and financial groups now being fined $500 million each by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission for misrepresenting and actually taking money from people, mostly in California, you know, by manipulating rates and so-called markets. The basic issue is that if we do the regulations and all those kinds of things, I have seen companies consistently work around them, bypass them, figure some way to kind of gerrymander it in some way. That's what I'm afraid of. And I think that what has been needed is to put a moratorium on any fracking whatsoever in California, let alone the rest of the United States. And I say that because the issue that I haven't heard addressed in there, but I am now doing research on with some colleagues of mine up in Sacramento, Northern California, what is the health cost? If you get ill, if someone has asthma, someone gets a lung problem or whatever, or even people having heart attacks from the climate changing or from the results of the water that's being, if you will, not even purified, but let's simply say treated doing fracking, there's some major issues there, and we don't know the answers to that. So what do we want to do? We want to make all that happen and move it along, and then at the end of the day say, oh my God, that's expensive. Who's paying for it? The issue is we've got to stop, look at it, and be sure that we have other alternatives in mind. One of the major problems I did not hear being talked about today is that it sounded to me like the assumption was fracking was going to happen. That's the wrong assumption, particularly if you look at other countries around the world who've dealt with the same issue and done something about it. Case in point, no one's talked about nuclear power. Yet in San Onofrio has just been shut down here in Southern California. The Germans have shut down half of their nuclear power plants and replaced it with wind. Not only that, they have so much wind that they've produced, they've exported it, guess to who? France, which 73% of its energy comes from nuclear power. And that comes directly from the German government, from companies that work in Germany, and from others. This is something that we in this state and this country have got to learn about and begin to get that information, because we're not doing it right now and we're missing the boat.
Thank you so much.
Did I sound too political?
No.
No, that was great.
I have all kinds of
Thank you so
facts. You want more facts? Let me show you diagrams, slides. I have, as a matter of, no, I should. If you want, I have some great slides about this, but anyway, because I give talks about it all over the world.
Very cool.
That would be helpful.
If you can shoot me
That
an
would be
email.
helpful for
that would
us.
be-
Sure,
The
yeah.
slides
Or,
would be good.
okay, drop me a note, you'll get my card, and also if you need some more information, do that first with me, because
Yeah.
I get cards all the time. It's better if
Okay.
you just send, but remind me that, okay, you're going to be the camera person, you're the director, I assume, something. So he's the producer. Just say what your roles are, so I